built 1492 was its original voyage. It was built back in 1991 by an 8th generation family from Portugal who moved to Brazil, who know the traditional methods of the caravels. So the hand tools, hand saws, axes, hammers, chisels, planes, everything that they would have done on the original ships was done on this ship. Planes, holystone, soaking the wood, hand torches, it was all done exactly the same. When Christopher Columbus, after his first voyage, came back, he bought a half share in the Nina, and in his later years he actually had to sell her because he went bankrupt, and when he sold her he took a bill of sale and he documented extreme detail of the ship because he wanted every single cent that she was worth, down to the last iron peg. So when Columbus Foundation was rebuilding the ship, they found that bill of sale, and that's how they were able to get so close to what she actually was.
Okay.
Now, there was 24 to 27 men on this ship, all living on deck. Nobody slept below down in the hold. What they would do is they would use the windlass, and they would run a line from the end of the windlass up to the end of the yardarm, and then back down to wherever they were loading their cargo, the ship's boat, and they would drop it down into the hold, and then that's the bigger animals like the horses, the cows, the pigs, the goats. They would hang them in slings, so that way the ship would rock. They would rock with the ship, and they wouldn't break their legs.
They'd be down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rest of the men were out on deck. The only people that went below deck was the cabin boys to clean out the bilge and take care of the animals, and the captain and the first mate had their own separate quarters back in the stern castle underneath. Those were the only crew that slept below decks.
Wow.
Yes. The windlass did all the heavy lifting, hauled up the ship's anchor, load the cargo, launched the ship's boat. The ship's boat was originally flipped upside down and across the hold to help keep water out. If you were a senior crew, and you would be lucky enough to get a spot underneath the ship's boat if it was rainy, but otherwise you're standing out here like ducks in the rain. Originally, the reason why the ships are black is because they didn't look good in pink. No, just kidding. The original reason is because they pine tar, that pine sap that you get on your hands, they would put that in vats, and they would cook it down, and they'd mix it with linseed oil and some other natural ingredients, and you get this very sticky substance. It smells like barbecue sauce for Crusoe, and the ships were covered with it. The deck sealed. Everything that you see is black. The shrouds, the deck, the cap rails, everything that's black was pine tar. So it's a very sticky substance. It was like painting it in molasses. They would start. Yeah, it was sort of a Thompson's water sealer of the day. You'd start at the stern of the ship, work all the way to the bow, and then you'd do it again. It was a constant job because on a hot day, it'll just evaporate. Volatilize, it just disappears. So you're always constantly reapplying tar. Back in the stern castle, the only crew that were allowed back there was the captain and the first mate.
And that's the stern castle?
Yes. That's the captain, the first mate, and the helmsman were the only crew allowed back there. 3 reasons. One, in the stern castle, that's where we steer the ship, by a tiller. The ship's wheel didn't come around for another 80 to 100 years after Columbus died. So the stern castle is where they steered the ship. The hatch for the captain's quarters, the only way in and the only way out is back there underneath the stern castle, so you don't want any untrustworthy crew to lock them down there. And another reason is because on the raised aft deck you have the ship's coffin. Now, unlike a coffin of what we think of today, the coffin back then is where they stored all their valued goods: gunpowder, parchment, ink, gold, silver. It was all stored in the ship's coffin, anything they figured was of value. So that's where they would store any of their gold and silver. They didn't want anybody to go and get their dirty, grubby hands in there. So that was one reason why they weren't allowed back there, even though it's the only protected part of the ship. They were stuck out.
Now, Patty said about 24 people were originally on this boat. There's probably about 30 people on this boat right now.
About that.
So this would be about how many people would be on the boat?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you were actually shoulder to shoulder with other people.
You were. On Columbus's second voyage, he left with a armada of 17 ships. And when they got over to the New World, they ran into a hurricane. 16 of those 17 ships sank. The only one to survive was the Nina. Columbus at the helm, so he went around, picked up as many sailors as he could. He got 120 men on this deck
Wow.
with food and cargo. Made it back to Spain. Only 88 of those men made it back alive.
Wow.
So it was a rough life.
Yeah.
And still true to today, our first mate Vic, he can tell you a story. For 4 solid days, this trail was in blue water. The water line was up in here. He was actually stung by a jellyfish standing back at the tiller with water up to his knees. So
Wow.
that was a fun voyage. He didn't describe it as an adventure at the time. So that's pretty much the ship.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And us volunteer crew, we maintain it. So we take it from port to port and get paid in experience. So that's always fun.
Yeah. How long have you been on?
6 months.
Wow. You must love it.
I do. I have salt in my veins.
Very good.
She bought a share in her, and she made all
Very good.
Well, how did you do the outside?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,